Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Stephen A. Williams, president and founder of the creditrepairshop.com. And in today's video, we're going to talk about debt validation. Debt validation is the key to unlocking the door for you to get started on repairing your credit. In this video, I'm going to talk about debt validation with original creditors, and I'm going to talk about debt validation with debt collectors who have purchased your debt. Now, you might be saying, well, Steve, how can you do a debt validation with the original creditor? Well, there are some circumstances where you're going to want to do a debt validation, even if it's with the original creditor, because it's going to open up the door for you to move into a settlement phase, or potentially where you can get a 1099-C cancellation of debt given to you for that from that original creditor. So this video, please pay attention, because I'm going to take it from the top and I'm going to work you all the way through to potentially being able to get that debt settled or be able to get that debt canceled out. I'm going to tell you exactly some places that you need to check, because you could have a 1099-C and don't even know it. I'm going to tell you how to get these debt collectors and creditors into the right mindset to help you be able to accomplish your goal of either canceling out the debt or doing a settlement, so you can move forward and have the credit that you deserve. Because the bottom line is that you want to do all of this so you can get to the goal of having good or excellent credit. So the first thing that we want to talk about here is the debt validation process. The first thing that I always tell people to do is you need to check the statute of limitations on the debt. From time to time, I'll see, where people had contacted our office and they said that they have a debt from either a debt collector or even an original creditor. And the first thing that I do, the first thing that my staff does, is that I always want them to ask what state that they're in. Because if we know what state that they're in, the next logical step in that process is to check the statute of limitations on that debt. Just in case you don't know this, the statute of limitations for debt varies from state to state. It is not the same. It's just according to what your state put into action. For example, the state of California has a 3-year statute of limitation. They have a 3-year statute of limitations for regular installment type loans, like if you're paying your car payment, and for credit card debt. And in other states, the statute of limitations for an installment loan may be longer than it is for a credit card debt or an open-end type of account. So like a line of credit. So the first thing that you want to do, you want to get used to doing this for everything. So when you're looking at your credit reports and you're getting down, you're starting to work on your credit, is that you need to check that statute of limitations for your particular state. Now, let me mention something that I've had this question come about a lot. If you've moved from into another state, and people would say, well, if the statute of limitations benefits me in this state over the state that I moved from, which statute of limitations should I go off of? Well, for your information, is that if that creditor or debt collector was to try to sue you, they have to sue you in the state that you're in, your residence. They have to go to your venue to sue you. So if the statute of limitations benefits you in the state that you've moved to, obviously you could utilize that information to stop the debt collection process, even if it's still with the original creditor, because the statute of limitations works in your favor. Now, I've also had the question asked in the reverse, where they said, I moved to a state where the statute of limitations is long, it's higher than it was in the state that I moved from. And what I would tell people to do is to let them know, hey, where the debt originated from, it's past the legal statute of limitations. Now, you're going to have to let them make that determination on if they're going to hold with the statute of limitations from where you lived at when the loan was originated, or if you're gonna if they're gonna say, hey, we know where you're at now, and the statute of limitation is different. The reason why this question comes up a lot, though, which it actually does benefit the individuals when this happens, is that the debt collector or the original creditor did not get the forwarding address to where the individual moved to. So they had sent the letter to, say it was they lived with their parents or a roommate or something, or whatever that situation was. The letter came to the old address in the other state. And so if they are still sending letters there and you have access to those letters and the statute of limitations still works for you there, then what you can do is just respond using that same address, stating that the debt that they're trying to collect is past the legal statute of limitations to collect. Now, when you're sending that letter, that statute of limitations letter, there is no need to do any debt validation. There is no need at all. You do not have to argue about the debt. You're just notifying them that they have no legal recourse to be able to come after you to make you pay that debt, and that you want them to cease all collection activities, that no, you are not going to pay it. It is past the legal statute of limitations to collect. And again, that goes for original creditors and debt collectors who buy your old debts. Now, there is something else that I want to make you aware of, is that utility debt, cell phone debt, cable bill debt, anything that is considered a utility has a federal 2-year statute of limitations on that debt. A 2-year statute of limitations on that debt. So if you receive one from a cell phone company, that's why you'll see cell phone companies, cable companies, they will sell their debt very fast because they know that the statute of limitations ran out. And so they're going to be like, hey, if they haven't paid us in a year, forget about it, sell the debt. And the debt collectors are going to buy it. And they know that they really only have 1 year left to try to collect on that debt. Not to say that some of them don't try to do it past that time, because we see that a lot of the times, but they're going to really be aggressive within that 1 year period of time because they know that it's going to be time barred. And that's another word that's used for debt that's past the legal statute of limitations. In the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, it actually states in there time barred debt. So if you hear that word, time barred. And also, before I move forward, when a debt collector contacts you about a debt that's past the legal statute of limitations or time barred, they are required by the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act to notify you. So if they call you on the phone, you will actually hear it in their conversation where they'll say, hey, Steve, is this Stephen Williams? We are calling you about this AT&T debt I want to notify you that this is attempted to collect a time-barred debt. They will actually throw that phrase into there, and people don't know. They're like, time barred. They're thinking, you know how the mind works. They're thinking, okay, I got a short period of time to get it. Maybe I should go to Google and type in time barred. What does time barred mean? And then they go there and they be like, oh, but they're still kind of confused because they're like, if a debt collector is calling me about a time barred debt and it states that this is a debt that's past the legal statute of limitations, why are they able to call me? So it makes all of this confusion. It would just be better that they can't call people and they can't even send out a letter or anything on a debt that is past the statute of limitations to collect. Because it gets people confused, because they're like, if it's a violation to collect a time barred debt, it's not a violation to collect a time barred debt. Let me rephrase that. If a person is not legally obligated to pay a time barred debt, there is no legal remedy for a debt collector or original creditor to make you pay a time barred debt. Well, why are we even going after time barred debts? There's companies that just do it. So now the next step, when a debt collector has a debt, and we're going to get into it with original creditors also, but when a debt collector is trying to collect on a debt, something that I want you to pay attention to is that letter that they send you, if it's from a third party, they are not allowed to share your information, your private information, with an unauthorized third party. So you should always pay attention. And this could even be from original creditors. So they have to send that from their mailroom. If it, number one, if it's a postcard from a debt collector, that's a no-no, that's a violation. If it's I don't believe, I've never seen it from an original creditor. Original creditor is going to just continue sending you a bill with a statement in there saying that you're late. But from a debt collector, if you look at it, pay attention. If you see these meter bars, anything that looks like it's from a third party, you can actually also type in the meter that's on there, on the stamp meter, and see where that came from. And if it came from a third party mailing house, you could simply write a letter to the debt collection company and say, hey, you violated by sharing my information with a third party, and I have proof. You can print out, attach it to your letter and say, I did a reverse search on this meter, and it says that it's coming from such and such mailing service or whatever. And you would be able to, they will just stop that debt, because that is a major violation. They are just not able to do that. Debt collectors can do a lot, but this is one of the things that is specifically stated in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, that they cannot share your information. Now, another thing is that they cannot call around friends and neighbors and disclose your information. Now, they will call your references, and they can call to try to get in touch with you, but they cannot state the reason why they're trying to get in touch with you. Also, something that you need to be aware of is that when they send that letter, they have to notify you that you have a right to dispute any or part of that debt. They, some of the times they gloss over it. They'll put it way at the bottom, or they'll stick it in the middle where they, try to scare you up and get you emotional about the debt. And then they'll have this little bitty paragraph that'll say you have a right to dispute any or all of that debt. And actually, that first letter that they send you is not actually a bill. It's like a notification letter. Now, if you don't respond to that letter within 30 days, you are giving them permission to do the following. They are able to put that information on your credit report on all three, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian credit reports, or maybe they're only going to put it on one. That's up to them, but you are giving them permission. And it's also leveling up, saying that you owe that debt. Without you saying anything, the way the law is written in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act is that if you don't respond and you don't do anything, you are actually saying yes. So you're thinking you're doing nothing when you're actually doing something by not doing nothing, which is you're saying that the debt is yours. So you got two new problems on your hand. The next thing is that they are not allowed to call you. I know that this is a gray area. This is a gray area because depending on the resources of the debt collection company, and because you got these smaller ones that are out there, you got some that are like, hey, no matter how big we are, we know how to do it. We're old school. We're going to call people. Well, this is actually written in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, is that they're supposed to send you this letter first, and then they're supposed to talk to you. They can start calling you. Now, they have written in the law, this is something that was changed during the last presidential administration, is that debt collectors can actually call you, which is unbelievable. They can call you up to 7 times per day. Now, I think that there's some legislation to get that restricted, but they can try to make 7 contacts. Now, the way that I've seen them start to do that is they can reach out on social media. They can reach out by phone. They can actually also reach out by texting you. And all of this is now legal with the way that they're doing it. And some of the other bigger companies, what they're doing is they're using skip tracing technology, where they're just like looking at your credit reports, looking at your addresses, and they're trying to boil down and put together where you're at, how much money you're making, so they can see if it's even worth going after you for it. And they're looking at the patterns of how you're paying your bills and all that stuff. But that's at higher levels. So if you're ever getting sued by some of these higher level debt collection companies, these national companies, these are some of the things that they'll do to try to get in touch with you or to try to figure out what you're doing. So now the next step with that debt validation is we want to look at how we can deal with it with original creditors. There is always that option with dealing with it with an original creditor. And you can also get that original creditor to push that into a 1099-C. And I will be speaking on that also. So now, if you have an original creditor, I always say it's going to be a lot easier to deal with the original creditor on a level of potentially getting a 1099-C due to a hardship, or a good settlement to where you're just able to move forward and not have to deal with a debt collector. Not to say that there is not benefits if it does get to a debt collector, because a debt collector has paid a lot less for the debt and they're more willing to go a lot lower some of the times than the original creditor. Original creditor is going to always try to focus on getting as much of their money as they can. So when you're dealing with the original creditor, you want to look at, and this is also when you're dealing with a debt collector too, but were there any disputes directly with the original creditor? I had a client that she was constantly in a back and forth with her credit card provider. She was like, these accounts, these charges, I did not do. And then also the fees that they charged, she was like, these fees are, these were not what the way that I understood it in my contract. And so when she would get on the phone with them, she would get, she would think that this stuff was being worked on by the original creditor. And she was like, okay, well, follow up. And then she would follow up with a call when nothing had happened. And it was just always promises by the credit card company, which was the original creditor. And all of a sudden, one day she looked up and it was like, the account is closed. And they actually sold the account like a month later. And we were like, she was like shocked and surprised. And then when it got into the hands of a debt collector, they aggressively came after her like right away. Some of the times with these debt collectors, they'll wait like, a year because they're finishing up another batch that they already did. They came after her right away to collect on that debt. And what the thing that we made clear to them is that she had disputes with them. She had disputes with them. So pointing out those disputes that she had with them, that debt collector bagged up and they were like, okay, well, would you like to figure out a resolution? And I got with her and I said, well, what are you trying to do? What, are you trying to move forward now? Or do you want to, go at this on the long haul? Because they, you never know what they might try to do. She said, I'm trying to buy a house. I'm down here in Florida. I'm renting right now, but I had an opportunity to buy a house. That's why I'm trying to get this, this stuff situated. And I said, okay, well then let's work out a deal to get them paid and, so you could be able to move forward. And then we'll deal with the marks on the original creditor after we deal with that. And so she was able to move forward, but she did have disputes with them. So even if you're dealing with a debt collector and you are, and you do your debt validation process with the debt collector, if you have any disputes with the original creditor, you do that and you tell them, because they've taken over all the responsibility for that debt. That means that they should have all of the records. You look up the records of my dispute. I'm not going to go back and forth with you about it because you have no real internal knowledge about this. You have no customer service messages. You have no customer service conversations recorded. You have none of that stuff. If you do have it, then you will know what my dispute was about. I'm just going to tell you that I had disputes about the charges on there. So when you're doing your debt collector debt validation, you're going to want to say, show me the contract. Show me the original contract with the original creditor. Show me all of the history, because I have disputes with them. Regardless, even if you don't have disputes with the original creditor, when a debt collector buys a debt, they assume all the responsibilities for that debt. So if you were to file bankruptcy, before that debt collector purchased that debt, and that original creditor did not notify the debt collector that you filed bankruptcy, and they bought that debt and they started coming after you for that debt, and that's another validation of why that first letter from the debt collectors is not really a debt, a bill to you, because they have to first do a verification to see, like a notification. It's called a dunning letter. They have to just notify you that this is an attempt. And if there's anything that you want to dispute, you can do that right now. What if you file for bankruptcy? If you file for bankruptcy, did you know that the debt collector cannot go to the original creditor and say, well, this one here filed for bankruptcy. Can you just give me another one? Like you going into a store and you're getting exchange, like this shirt didn't fit. I want to exchange it for this shirt over there. Debt collectors can't do that. They assume all responsibility for them. So you might as well take that tool, out of your back pocket, and you say, okay, I want you to do all of these. Get the contract with you. Show me how I even have any dealings with you for you to even be able to contact me with this. The next one is the original contract from the original creditor. I just want to see that to make sure that everything is above board, because there's been some issues with original creditors. I'm going to get into that in a second. And then all of the history. You have a right to get all of the history for review. Now, before I move on to the next screen, let me just ask you this quick question. Answer this question. And I know your head is going to be nodding yes. Isn't this like where you're actually doing something different, where you're actually challenging them, not running away from them, not doing something that's like a gimmick? Like this is actual work that you're doing it. This is like you're doing that marathon and you're getting used to doing something and you're just getting more and more energy, not where you're just like sprinting and then you get tired and you try to do something else. You're sprinting, get tired and try to do something else. You can see that this is a process. But the thing about it that I want you to understand is that this is the process that you got to continue doing. And that's why I say it's like doing a marathon. And you have to keep your mind on this, not on what your body is doing. Your body is going to continue doing what you tell it to do. Just like when you go to work, even if you don't feel good in the morning and you have to go to work, you tell your body, get up, take a bath, take a shower, and go to work and get the job done. That's what you got to do with this. But if you get your mindset right and get everything thinking the right way, you'll wake up in the morning refreshed. You'll be like, okay, I'm ready to accomplish this. Like it's not going to be something that you're just tired of doing. You're going to know that you're getting somewhere. You're going to get energy from doing this. You're going to get energy from taking your power back. So now let's move on to the next screen here. So what we want to do, the best option is to get an original creditor to file a 1099-C. 1099-C, cancellation of debt. The ways that you can get them to do that is that you can express your hardship to them. Now, this is before they have sold your debt. Now, part of that marathon process to get an original creditor to do a 1099-C is that you have to first have the debt charge off. There is no way that you can save your credit if it has a charge off, because they have to take it off the good books and put it on the bad books. And it requires a 180-day process for credit cards. Some loans, like automobile loans, depending on your lender, could be 2 to 3 months. It just depends on the lender and the way that the contracts are written. So it's going to be a process. You're going to have to be in that marathon race. First, it could take 6 months to charge off. Next, during that process, you could be expressing your hardship, but you're still going to be doing that marathon because they're going to be asking for documents. You're going to be giving them information. And then at some point, it's going to get to that 6 month and they're going to make that determination if we're going to sell this debt or if we're just going to do a 1099-C. That is the process. And you might be saying, well, Steve, how can I get them to do it? Because I know that got you perked up, because it's like, if you get a 1099-C, it's all done and over with. Like that would be just like the best option. Well, let me just review it again. You have to go through the process of having it charged off, regardless. During that process, you express your financial hardship. It has to be legitimate. It could be financial based off of medical, financial based off of personal, whatever that is. You cannot force them to take to file a 1099-C. You cannot produce a 1099-C and hand it to them and say, go get this money out of my secret account or my account that's with my social security number. You go get it out of there that has millions of dollars. You are able to get it. You are not able to force them to do a 1099-C by giving them one and saying that the debts are already paid, because I watched other YouTube videos and they said that if a 1099-C, if I give it to you, it's already paid anyway. You know what to do with it. That does not exist. Don't believe that. The way that a 1099-C process can happen with an original creditor is to notify them, communication open. That's the tool that you're pulling out, my communication. Find out their hardship department. It's going to be very difficult to get to. You're in that marathon again. You're going to have to keep the body moving with the thought process of the goal of getting a potential 1099-C. It is their decision, but it is your job to get the information to them. They will review your hardship. It still has to go through the charge-off process. So understand, your credit is going to be, it's going to get hurt by it. Depending on how many accounts you're doing this for, it's going to get hurt. And they will determine if they're going to do it or if they're going to sell it. Now, if they sell the debt, what I want you to immediately do if they sell the debt is I want you to call the IRS to make sure that the original creditor has not filed a 1099-C. We are finding, like, almost at least weekly, we get copies of 1099-Cs from that customers give us when they've called the IRS, and it'll say 2022 on there, and they're like, I didn't even get that in 2022. They should have actually got that 1099-C document in January or February of 2022 is when they should have gotten that document, because that's when it was filed. But, whatever's going on, all of that stuff is delayed. Everything is delayed right now. So that's what we can't control, but what we can control is what we do. So you call the IRS to see if the original creditor filed a 1099-C. Next thing that I want you to do is I want you to look at, and we're talking from the standpoint of a debt collector having a debt, is we want to see if there was any original creditor class action lawsuits. Because if there's any original creditor class action lawsuits, you may, number one, be in the lawsuit. Number two, you may be a victim of what happened with the people who are in that lawsuit. So even if you're not in the state where, like say, the state of Texas decided to sue a creditor, original creditor, because of violations that they had, and your state did not participate with that, but you can read that class action lawsuit and be like, this is exactly what's happening here with me. This is what happened. So you could draw up that letter to the debt collector and say, I'm going to contest this debt based off of these things here. This happened to me and they got sued over there. And if you try to come after me legally for this, I'm going to bring up all of that stuff. Plain English, you tell them, I'm going to bring up all of that stuff because this happened to me. One of the things that I found with dealing with a lot of clients who had payday lender loans, especially the ones that are part of these Indian reservation payday loan companies, where they pay the leaders of the reservation to set up a business, to have their location, like their home headquarters there, even though they're off in other places, but their headquarters is there, and they're trying to get over by charging higher interest rates. They're trying to get around some of the regulation. Now, we found that in a lot of these online payday lending companies, and some of the ones that are just local payday lending companies, is that they violate the usury law. Now, you can look at this also for automobile loans and other type of loans that you get. And you got to find out what is the max rate that they can charge in your state. And once you find that out, if they had any type of violation on that, that would be part of your debt validation, is that you're letting them know, or the debt collector become aware of something that was a major violation by the original creditor. That's another tool in your belt to stop a debt collector from coming after you. The next thing is that you want to get all of your information, again, your contracts and stuff like that, and you want to see if your signature was there or if there was a digital signature or written. This is a problem that we've seen with a lot of these companies. I don't know why they're having this issue, but they're dealing with people online and they didn't even have the appropriate documentation to show a digital signature. And then with another one, with a car company, we found that there was a contract where it had a written signature on both of them, but it was a forged signature on the one that was handed over to the car finance company. And you can look at this for yourself. It was American Credit Acceptance. So this is not taking my word. Look at the recent class action lawsuit, and they stated that dealers were actually making two contracts. The client signed one, either digital or they signed it in person, and that the contract that was sent over to American Credit Acceptance was a totally different contract. It had different terms. The payment was the same. That's why a lot of people really didn't catch it. Is that, car dealers know, these finance people know how to finagle it to give you that same payment, but the amount that you're paying on the car is a lot higher. Even the interest rate is even different. They have ways of doing that. Have you ever seen it where you'll go? I remember this trick that was played on me and my wife. You go into the car dealer and they'll have these boxes, and they'll be like, this payment, like let's just say that they'll have like 500, they'll have like 400, they'll have like 700, and they'll have like 800. And they do that for a reason. They'll be like, which one you want to be at? Because all they're trying to do is just be like, what if? Because they're trying to get you thinking like, if you can get me at that 400, I'm good. When you don't even know that to get you at that 400, all of these are the same. All of these are the same. But when they get you into a 400 versus an 800, the 800 could be like, if you take the 800, that could be the real terms of the loan. Like they wouldn't have to do anything. They wouldn't have to finagle nothing. But if you come up in there and you say 400, they're in the back room. That's why they never let you in that back room. Like you're over there, looking at the car and talking. The sales guy is pacing because he's like, man, I hope they don't, back out. I hope they don't, especially with the internet now where people could be looking online and be like, that don't match right. So they really try to keep their eyes on you, but it takes all that time because what they're doing is they're getting that paperwork together and they're trying to figure out how can they get the money that they're going to make out of this payment, but they need to get you into that payment. So they're, shifting everything around. And what we saw with American Credit Acceptance, we saw this with Santander, is that they actually, when people came out of there and they had made payments, and they were even getting higher payments, is that they paid on their car for 36 months, had a 36-month loan, 60-month loan, 48-month loan, 72-month loan. Sorry, I did that out of order. 36, 48, 60, 72-month loans. And at the end of paying the last payment, guess how much they owed? They owed the same amount that they bought the car for. So imagine you pay on a car for 36 months. You buy the car for $30,000. You paid $30,000 for the car. You pay on the car for 60 months. Let's just say 5-year loan, 60 months. And at the end, you make that last payment and you owe the same amount. And you're like, well, why didn't they look at it on the statements? Why? It just don't make sense. Yeah, it don't make sense because what they did is when the people made the last payment, it was like they had a balloon payment coming next. And these people, but let me tell you why that was happening. The reason why that was happening is because when they write their quote unquote algorithm for these car loans, is that most people, they're figuring that most people will not either keep the car that long, or they will not pay the car off. That's somewhere in there. That's what subprime lending is built on, you failing. It's built on you failing. That's the system of failing, where you fail, you end up getting another subprime loan, make a certain amount of payments, they're making a whole bunch of money on your payments, and then you fail again. Where it breaks down is when you have that person that's like, man, I listen to Steve, I'm gonna take care of that car, I'm gonna pay it off, and all of a sudden they're like, I still owe. That actually happened. Don't take my word on it. Look at the Santander lawsuit if they didn't take it down. I know what something crazy is that these administrator companies start taking the information about the lawsuit down. So you might have to do some searching online to find actually the actual details, or look at some of my older videos that I had. So now let's get back to it with the debt validation. We know that we talked about this earlier, is that any privacy issues with the collector, any privacy disclosure issues, and all of this also is allowing you to be able to build up just in case they end up trying to take you to court. So you want to make notations of all of this stuff, any privacy issues, any violations in the past by the debt collector. You may find, something out that you didn't even know, that they might have had violations with the debt that they're coming after you for. Like, other people have sued them, and then it's like, this is the debt batch that, I was with that creditor, and so they're in violation with all of this. They don't want you to know about that. There was an issue with Jefferson Capital was buying a lot of the Santander debt, and they didn't notify people that, hey, this debt is actually forgiven. That was part of the class action lawsuit in, I think it was 36 states, that the debt was actually forgiven, but Jefferson Capital was continuing to come after people. And we would have to write to Jefferson Capital and call Jefferson Capital and say, we are putting you on notice that you are trying to come after debt that was included in the Santander class action lawsuit. And they would write back, oh, we didn't know, we didn't know. We had sent certain ones back, but this one was, somehow got missed or whatever. They were trying to collect on that debt. So you want to make sure. And then another thing that you want to check on, and I put this one here as an example, and this happened a lot with one of the major credit card companies. I don't want to mention their name because I don't want to get into any, have any issues with them. But they actually use people they use religion. I'm just going to be straightforward. This credit card provider was using religion to collect on that debt. And there's some people who are of some religious faiths that are big on, if you do not pay your debt. And so he called me, my client called me, and he said, hey, they're actually putting a lot of pressure on me. They actually had someone that is, understands my religion, my community, and they put a lot of pressure. They made me feel very, very bad. Like, and this guy could not sleep. I mean, you know how it can be. You know how it can be. It's already tough to be able to sleep with just the debt. But then if you're a religious individual, and you know that you're taught right and wrong and got to pay your debts, but you just can't do it. But so you had this inner conflict within you. And so I said, I'm not an advisor on, a spiritual advisor with that part. You're going to have to kind of come to that, understanding and reasoning and decision yourself. I'm going to tell you what you can do and what they cannot do to you. And when we had our back and forth, we would tell them, hey, it's uncomfortable to be able to bring religion into this. Very uncomfortable. And this was an original creditor, a credit card company, one of the biggest national credit card companies that was doing that. So that would be a violation. Now I would put them on notice that you feel like that they're, that they're breaking the FDC, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, that you believe them as an original creditor by using that tactic is not above board. So now, right here. Okay, so just want to review that I didn't miss out anything. All right. Well, hey, I'm going to end the video here. If you have, if you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video, What Makes a Difference, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my 2-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the website, your3scores.com. Link is below this video for both of those. And it's not, the whole reason why I do this is just to level up your awareness. It's not about you having to come to me as a customer, because I give it all to you. I know that sometimes it might, I might make it sound easy. It's just because we do it every day. That's really what it comes down to, is when you do something over and over and over again, you get used to it. It sounds easy to do. But please rewatch the video, rewind it, take notes, because I'm giving you exactly what you need to be able to accomplish this with debt validation, getting a potential 1099-C, and even setting up a defense if they try to come after you in a lawsuit, a debt collector. If you have debt collectors coming after you early, I want you to grab my 3-pack of letters. I give you a statute of limitations letter, I give you a cease and desist collection activities letter, and a debt validation letter. The instructions are on there. Use the one that's appropriate for your situation. If you need to find the statute of limitations for your state, you can go to my website, thecreditrepairshop.com, and at the bottom, click on the blog, type in statute. You'll see the statute of limitations for all 50 states. Column 1 is installment loans. Column 4 is credit card or any type of lines of credit, revolving type credit is going to be in column 4. Statute of limitations in some states is shorter for credit card debt and lines of credit. I do ask for a donation on those because it can save you literally a lot of time, frustration, and ultimately money. Because just think about it. If you could use one of those letters and stop a debt collector from coming after you that was potentially coming after you for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So I really appreciate it to anyone who feels it within them to donate. The amount is totally up to you. There's no amount. And, those letters are available to you. Links are below this video. There's other links below the video too. If you're being sued by a debt collector, we would like to review those documents and potentially be able to help you with that also. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe to the channel. Please post your questions.